With a gruesome but fascinating story from Syria.
Yes, this is on the front page of The Guardian this morning. They're headlining on this story from Syria with a very, very harrowing photo on the front page. These are the pictures that started coming out of the country in late January. These are bodies that were washed up on the banks of a river in Aleppo. Now, these pictures and the amateur footage that went along with them, of course, people were filming with their phones at the same time. They went round the world and they did spark a little debate in the media as to how much we could show without being voyeuristic, having to tell the story, of course, and having to show that this was happening, but how much do you show of these victims? El País, for example, in Spain came in for a lot of criticism for not blurring the faces of these victims. Now, The Guardian decided to follow up this story to find out who these people were, what happened, how it was affecting the local community. They've followed the families of many of the victims, trying to find out how they're dealing with these deaths. And there's, it's very sad, and it really flags up quite a lot of logistical issues that they're having in Syria right now. Just that burying the dead, they say, is becoming a medieval issue in somewhere like Aleppo, where there's hardly any electricity, very little running water. The cemeteries are either full or inaccessible, and they've resorted to burying many of their dead in an abandoned playground. Now, just to recap on the story at the time, 110 men were found in total. They were all young, no women, of course. They suspect many other men were killed and could appear later on. They were Sunni, they had their hands bound, and they were shot in the head. Local people who've been interviewed are quite convinced, according to the Guardian reporter, that this was the work of Bashar al-Assad's troops, of regime army, and that it was a message, a very open message to the Free Syrian Army, that when they make advances and when they make progress in a place like Aleppo, that the army will retaliate by killing civilians. Now, many of the people who've been left in this town are women or girls, and some of them are saying that since they've lost the men in their family, fathers, uncles, sons, brothers, that they will join up to the Free Syrian Army now and join the jihad, or fight for the cause now.
Okay, next to North Korea. Is Pyongyang preparing an offensive?
Well, we've been reading a lot about this escalation of tensions between the two Koreas in the last few days. Pyongyang threatening to tear up the armistice that ended the civil war in 1953. The diplomatic situation we've heard a lot about, but we never hear anything, of course, from the people in North Korea, how they feel about what could be happening in their country, because there are very, very few journalistic accounts of life in North Korea. People are very reluctant to talk. Real journalism going on in the country is practically non-existent. One man, however, was able to strike up conversation with Koreans. Andrew McLeod, writing for The Independent in the UK. He's a former aid worker, so perhaps that's why he's in the country. He said that the people he spoke to seemed to be celebrating the prospect of launching an attack on South Korea, because they're convinced that their southern neighbours have 800 warheads centred on them, that they're under attack, and that when he suggested that nuclear armament might be a negative thing, they responded by saying, if America has nuclear weapons, why can't we? And they were quite proud of their arsenal. So you just get an idea of how the people in North Korea follow the belligerent policy of the government, because that's the information they have access to.
Okay, next up, a big day in Rome, or I should say the Vatican, tomorrow, choosing the Pope.
Yes. We've heard, obviously, nothing but this for the last couple of weeks. The big issues are pulling the Vatican out of the controversy, choosing the right pope, someone who's perhaps a diplomatic choice, someone who will please the conservative camp and the reform camp within the conclave. This morning there's a lot more humorous reporting on the decision. The International Herald Tribune is looking at the whole sense of suspense and anticipation in Rome. Their journalist describes it as like it's vibrating with the high wire intensity of the last few hours of a presidential campaign, with people kissing babies. And he says that, they're all running for the campaign without showing that they're running for the campaign. They're drumming up last-minute goodwill, cracking jokes in English and Italian, and they're also under huge amounts of scrutiny. There's some 5,000 journalists at the moment in the city watching their every move, filming them, noting down what they're saying and doing. Now, Sunday was the last big day for this. The Guardian reported on this. There were a lot of guest appearances in masses around the city. There was an American cleric, for example, who suggested that the food in the Sistine Chapel wasn't that great, so he might take in a chocolate bar with him in case he gets peckage. And then another man saying that the deliberation, he hoped it would be short because he just didn't have enough socks to last him the week.
Politics is politics, Olivia Salazar-Winspear. Thanks very much for that roundup of the international press. It's a reminder of the world news headlines here on France 24, and remember